Let's see here. We got today is 16 November. It's Sunday. I'm Charlie Garrett, and this is the CG Prophecy Report. Who's the dummy here? That and a lot of other things to go over on today's report. Okay, we got a couple of folks that just walked in here early this morning, Pat and Barb, and they are down from Wisconsin. You retired, is that right? And you're in the thing? Okay.
We're traveling in a motorhome.
Gotcha. He's in a motorhome. They're traveling around the U.S. His brother, who lives out in Hawaii, came to visit, and his brother said, please come to the church. And so here they are. Real pleasure to have you guys here. Thank you for the effort. You too, sir. We got some news from Israel today. From Israel Hayom. This is just the whole world that we're living in is infected with this, and Israel has the problem as well. From, let's see here, IDF orders removal of Chinese cars over espionage fears. Yeah, in an unusual move, the IDF has begun collecting Chinese-made vehicles from officers under direct orders from the Chief of Staff. The decision follows an assessment by Israel's security agencies that certain Chinese cars pose a risk of sensitive information leaks or even espionage through their onboard systems. I would say that it's not some of the Chinese cars, it is all of them. That's why all over America they have gotten rid of innumerable number of Chinese contracts in the government and even in the public sector. If it's around a highway, if it's around a military base, it is banned now. This is going on in Norway. This is going on in Zimbabwe. It's going on in Peru. The whole world is infected with their electronic equipment, which is surveilling on you. And as we talked about, this is several months ago, they are not looking for specific information normally. They will, if they can get specific information, they will use that. But normally what they are doing is gathering global information or national information to understand the inner workings of a society so that they know how to shut that society down and take it over during a time of war. So this is a problem that is going over the entire world. The step is a part of a broader policy tightening restrictions on Chinese vehicles after they were already banned from entering IDF military bases. The process is being carried out gradually. In the first phase, vehicles are being collected from officers in classified roles, smart move, or those with access to sensitive security information. By the end of the first quarter of 2026, the measure will extend to all officers. The IDF estimates that around 700 vehicles are involved, most of them from Chery, Chery models that had been allocated to officers with large families because they seat 7 passengers. Officials explain that some Chinese vehicles include systems equipped with cameras, microphones, sensors, and connectivity technologies that transmit data to external servers, sometimes without the control of the user or even the local importer. A former senior officer, and as you've heard, I've reported at least 10 articles like this. This is everywhere. This is everything. If you have a modem in your house and it was made in China, you are being spied on right through your modem. Every single piece of equipment that they have this is a terrible business model. You get caught and then you get caught again. You're going to lose your base. And that's what China is going to have to now face, is because people are tired of being spied on. A former senior officer said the problem goes far beyond cameras and microphones. Every smart car is essentially a computer on wheels with a closed operating system and wireless connections that can enable intelligence gathering near sensitive installations. So it's not just you in the car they're monitoring. They can gather information as you're driving by a sensitive site. Several months ago, the Chinese ambassador to Israel, Zhao Junzeng, said that the allegations against his country's electrical vehicles were unfounded. Let's see, they found the things in there. They know what they're doing. They have connections that are going back to China. I would say that he's probably full of wind. According to estimates, the IDF's decision is also influenced by a global trend. The U.S. and U.K. have already banned Chinese vehicles from security-sensitive zones. A senior official familiar with the issue added that the move is also linked to Israel's relations with Washington amid the ongoing economic confrontation between the U.S. and China. So they're blaming Trump's tariffs and the negotiations going on there, everybody else has just jumped on the bandwagon, which is totally, totally untrue. From All Israel. Despite opposition, death penalty bill for terrorists heads to first Knesset reading. If you commit a terror act in Israel in the future, there is a death penalty for it. That's the goal. Now, some people have stepped away from that since this first reading. But the idea is if you have somebody doing that, guess what the next guy will not do, right? They're not going to take the chance. And so the death penalty is not something that is negative. In fact, it's right in the Bible. It is scriptural, even in the New Testament. Okay, Paul says, if I'm to die, I'm not opposed to that, but I am innocent of this particular charge. Okay, if I've done anything wrong of death, I think he says, no problem, but I haven't. Okay, so the death penalty is something that is used, and it is something that deters. Okay, and when people say the death penalty doesn't deter, I guarantee you the person that was put to death will never do that again. Okay, but that's an argument that you can take up with your local politician. Approval of the bill in its first reading would allow its continued advancement in the next Knesset, even if it is not passed in the current one. According to the proposal by M.K. Linor's son Har Melech, a terrorist convicted of murder motivated by nationalism or racism would be sentenced to death. The proposal further stipulates that a death sentence may be imposed by a majority vote of the judges and that no reduction of sentence would be permitted once a final verdict has been issued. There is a problem with this, and I do agree with them protesting this for the reason that they say no Jews will be executed under this law, when there are many, many Jews that are committing terror within Israel. Right now it's happening. I've got articles galore on them. They are committing terrorism against infrastructure and against people that are citizens of Israel just because they're not Jewish. And those people will never be tried by this court, and that is unfair. If you're a citizen of the nation and you're committing a crime worthy of a death penalty, you need to be executed. But that won't happen, and so there is blowback on this, and we'll see what happens. From All Israel, Czech foreign minister stresses Prague's support for Israel, believes EU sanctions averted. Good. Times of Israel, defending Israel in the EU, Hungarian minister says bloc risks being boxed out of the Mideast. Good. In other words, because they are doing these things, the entire EU is going to block themselves out of the Mideast, is what he is saying, and he's absolutely right about that. From the Times of Israel, Norway pauses ethical divestment after U.S. panned targeting of Israel-linked firm. Okay, that's a good news, too, for Israel. Norway was going to divest from Caterpillar and some other companies because they support Israel in one way or another. Trump let them have it, and they've backed off from it. So they obviously know that the business model only goes so far before it collapses. From MSN, New York should honor ICC warrant. Zoran Mandani targets Benjamin Netanyahu, and he reiterates a call to arrest Israel's prime minister. Okay, now that's like a joke and a half. If that guy was to attempt to arrest him when he is here legally in the United States, he would be arrested and he would be imprisoned. He's a mouthpiece. That's all that guy is. He's a nobody, and one of these days he will have his trap closed. Somebody is going to come and they're going to personally see that this guy is, when I say eliminated, I'm not talking about as a human. I'm talking about as a politician. They will get him out of the position he's in because he is a damaging human being. From the New York Post, Jewish FDNY, the fire department guy, commissioner hands in his resignation the morning after anti-Israel Zoran Mandani elected mayor. Okay, it was immediate. He just said, I'm out of here. And a lot of other people are going to do this. There's a guy just in the past 2 days that has canceled extending restaurants. He's got a chain of restaurants in New York. He's going to have them in Miami instead. And, once again, you talk about a business model. I'm a communist and everybody's going to get everything for free. There's going to be nobody to pay for it pretty soon because people are not going to tolerate this. And I'm talking about the people that actually produce in a society. All of the lefties can feed each other all day long and they'll never have anything to eat. So, got some news from Christianity. You probably heard about this. If not, you'll hear about it now from MSN. Jesus, not the Virgin Mary, saved the world, says the Vatican. Okay, this was a big thing going on 2 weeks ago. Okay, did Mary help save the world, or is it Jesus only? Okay, this is a debate because the last pope kind of was on the Jesus side, but he really adored Mary, and the one before him actually had a big M on his casket, and he was sold out to Mary. So it goes between popes. Is Mary a co-redemptress? Is it not? Well, right now, here's what we got. In a decree approved by Pope Leo, so the Pope decides this. Everybody got that? The Pope decides who saved the world.
Rabbi.
In a decree approved by Pope Leo, the Vatican's top doctrinal office instructed the world's 1.4 billion Catholics not to refer to Mary as the co-redeemer of the world. It would not be appropriate to use the title co-redemptrix, said the text. This title can create confusion and an imbalance in the harmony of the truths of the Christian faith. Catholics believe Jesus redeemed humanity by his crucifixion and death. That's what they believe because it's Catholic doctrine, not because the Bible says it, but because it's Catholic doctrine. Church scholars have debated for centuries whether Mary, who Catholics and many Christians call the Mother of God, helped Jesus save the world. Don't you love how they separate Catholics from Christians? If you go to a Catholic and you say, what do you believe? They'll say, well, I'm a Catholic. Most Christians will say, well, I'm a Christian. Catholics don't do that. If you say, are you a Christian? They'll say, well, I'm a Catholic. So it shows you that they are getting, and I'm not saying this to an unfriendly crowd. Half of you came out of Catholicism. All right, the people online, I would bet 90% of them came out of Catholicism. They want to know the Bible. They want to know the God of the Bible, and they're tired of religion. So the New Vatican Instruction highlighted Mary's role as an intermediary between God and humanity. So they're not going with the co-redemptrix thing, but they are going with the co-mediatrix. We can pray to Mary, and Mary will take her prayers to God, which is just as heretical and just as blasphemous as co-redemptrix. It's just another avenue of diminishing Jesus. You know what this is? This is a violation of Scripture. Can anybody tell me what Scripture this is a violation of? I'll give you a hint. Let us fix our eyes on Jesus. That's what the Bible tells us. Not Mary, not Peter, not anybody else. Let us fix our eyes on Jesus. I gave them a hint and they still didn't get it. Anyway, by giving birth to Jesus, she opened the gates of redemption that all humanity had awaited. So she's the vehicle of redemption, even if she's not a redeemer. The whole thing is bad. The whole thing is not only unbiblical, it is anti-biblical.
Evil system.
It is. From Newsmax, Cardinal Burke to Newsmax, exorcism prayer at St. Peter's, a sign of a spiritual battle. I talked to somebody about exorcism or demonology yesterday. Cardinal Raymond Leo Burke, who presided over a traditional Latin Mass at St. Peter's Basilica last week, where 97-year-old Cardinal Ernest Simoni delivered a prayer of exorcism, told Newsmax that the action was a powerful reminder that the forces of evil are on a rampage in the world, even within the church itself. Can anybody tell me the problem with that? The Bible says nothing, it prescribes nothing about demon-possessed getting rid of it. In other words, exorcisms. That was done under the law with Jesus. There are a couple instances in Acts, but the epistles, which drive our doctrine in the church age, say nothing. There's nothing to tell us what to do, and therefore it is not an issue. Does everybody understand that? Demonology is not an issue in the church. If you want somebody to be exorcised of a demon, how do you do it? You tell them about Jesus. If they accept the proposition, that demon must leave. It must. And that's it. That is the only thing that we have that will get a person undemonized, if that's a word. If not, it is now. Okay? That is it. Anybody that watches these things about demons and exorcisms and all that, or goes to churches where they proclaim that, are going to churches that have no idea what the Bible says, because the Bible says nothing about that issue. From the Times of Israel, Pope Leo meets P.A.'s Abbas, discusses need for Gaza aid, two-state solution. Pope Leo XIV, Palestinian Authority President Abbas for the first time, and the two discussed aid to civilians in Gaza and hopes for a two-state solution to end the conflict in the region. The meeting, which lasted about an hour, was described as cordial. The Pope and Abbas, who has led the West Bank-based Palestinian Authority for decades, had not met in person previously. They had spoken over the phone in July to talk about the developments in the conflict in Gaza and violence in the West Bank. Pope Leo repeatedly called for a ceasefire in Gaza before the current truce was reached last month. In September, Leo and his top diplomats also told President Herzog that a two-state solution was the only way out of the war. Okay, it's not the only way out of the war. The way to get out of that war is total victory over an enemy that went in and slaughtered innocent Israelis. That's the way to get out of that war. From the Christian Post, Tucker Carlson apologizes for saying he dislikes Christian Zionists. He said, "I was mad." He said that there is nothing that abhors him, that he finds more abhorrent anywhere than Christian Zionists. I would say that that's more than mad. That is confused theology, okay? He doesn't understand theology. He is a new Christian. He has not read the Bible through. He does not understand Israel's place in the world, okay? I have never said that Israel is right with God. I will never say that until Jesus comes back and they are finally right with God. Israel is not right with God, but God has brought them back into the land for his sovereign purposes, and he will effect those purposes. Ezekiel 36, 37, 38, 39. Jesus' words in the Gospels. They will go into a time of punishment. They will be under punishment, according to Deuteronomy 28 and Leviticus 26. They will be exiled around the world. They are not right with the Lord now. In fact, they hate the Lord now. And I'm not talking about all Jews. I'm talking about the Jewish state, the mentality. His name is used as a curse word in Israel for the most part. Okay? And then the other part that aren't some type of religious group are secular. And they don't want anything to do with Jesus anyway. You talk to them and it's like talking to them about any other religion except maybe Buddhism. They don't want to hear about it. Okay? This is the state of Israel. They must be refined in the fire. That's coming. Zechariah says that 2/3 of Israel is going to be exterminated. But there is a purpose for all of this, is to bring them back to himself. And he will. And they will call on Jesus according to Jesus' own words. And that is why I support Israel. I am a Zionist because God is not done with Israel. If God is ever done with Israel, he will be done with you.
That's right.
And he will never be done with you. Okay, I'm going to read you something. I gave this to a young man yesterday, the one that he was talking about all types of theology. One of them was demonology. One of them is Israel. And I told him to read this. Instead of just reading it to him, I said, you read this verse. And so he did. He got out his whatever you call it, iPad or iPhone or whatever those things are that I don't use. And I said, I want you to go to Amos and go to the very last verse of the book of Amos. You can actually go back to verse 14, but all you need really is verse 15. This is verse 9:15. Now, I'm reading it to you. You can go home and you can check if I'm reading you exactly what it says. But here's what it says. Now, this is speaking of Israel. Everybody got that? I will plant them in their land, and no longer shall they be pulled up from the land that I have given them, says the Lord your God. Now, the Lord said, I'm going to put them in the land and I will never pluck them up again. Here's a question for you. Did Israel go off to Babylon in captivity?
Yes.
Did Israel come back from captivity to the land of Israel?
Yes.
So it can't be speaking of the Babylonian captivity, because he says, I will plant them in the land that I have given to them, and never again will they be plucked up from that land. Okay, so you got that. So were they dispersed in the Roman times?
Yes.
They were dispersed. The temple was destroyed. They were exiled. Okay? Have they been returned since that time?
Yes.
I have told this to numerous numbers of people. If they are ever plucked up from the land of Israel that they are in right now, you can take this book and you can chuck it. It will never happen. Everybody got that? I will never throw away my Bible. I will never throw away my Bible because God will never reject Israel again. They have been planted. He signed it with his own name. And if you accept the words of Scripture, they are there forever. Okay? So have faith in the Lord. The attacks against Israel are not attacks against Israel. They are attacks against God. That is what they are. So Tucker Carlson has to make his choices. Got some news from the Mideast and Africa today. Ooh, exciting stuff. And I saw another article on it just this morning. Times of Israel. Saudi Arabia's request to buy F-35 jets clears first key Pentagon hurdle. And Trump is involved in that right now, which was the article this morning. The Trump admin is considering a Saudi Arabian request to buy as many as 48 F-35 fighter jets, a potential multi-billion-dollar deal that has cleared a key Pentagon hurdle ahead of a visit by Crown Prince MBS. Now, what is the main thing that has to be taken into consideration when selling F-35s to Saudi Arabia? The main thing, what is it? Israel's security, because they have what kind of jets? F-35s. And we have promised Israel hegemony in aerial supremacy in the area. And because of that, they have to weigh the balances. Now, they will never have the avionics in the F-35s that they buy from us that Israel has. Because when Israel gets its planes from us, which are the best in the world, they take all of our avionics and they chuck them out the window. And then they put in their own stuff, which is far superior. Okay? So this will probably not be a problem with Israel and Saudi Arabia. But just so you know, that is the key issue when selling things to the Middle East. A sale would mark a significant policy shift, potentially altering the military balance in the Mideast and testing Washington's definition of maintaining Israel's qualitative military edge. Saudi Arabia made a direct appeal earlier this year to President Trump and has long been interested in Lockheed Martin's fighter. Okay, anybody in the world can make a fighter jet. They make Saab fighter jets. They make, the French Mirages. And the Russian MiGs. And they got them all over the world. Everybody makes fighter jet, right? What do you want to buy and why is the question. If you're a little country like, we'll say, Indonesia wants to buy the F-16. This is exactly meets our needs. It's way better than all those other junky jets, but it's way more expensive. So then they get into what's called co-production. This is what I did when I was in the military. We monitored the defense contract management area of operations. We monitored co-production for all of Southeast Asia. And one of the offices that we went to was Bandung, Indonesia, where they made ailerons for the F-16. We will give you technology on how to do this. We will give you a break if you buy our airplane. So they get a break, they get the technology, they get all of these benefits by having ours. That's how this works out. Saudi Arabia does not need to worry about co-production, do they? They've got more money than anybody. They've got so much money that they just buy stuff just to throw it away. Okay? So that's why they want these. They want the best and they don't want to hem-haw around with other stuff. Okay, the weapons deal is moving through the system. Said no final decision has been made and several more steps are needed before the ultimate nod, including further approvals at the cabinet level, sign off from Trump, and notification of Congress. I can't believe, my son and my daughter-in-law just walked in. I thought, they're going to bail out on church today to be with my daughter who's in the hospital. Instead, here they are. You talk about some great children. Unbelievable. The Pentagon's policy department worked on the potential transaction for months, and the case has now progressed to the secretary level within the Defense Department. The Pentagon, White House, and State Department did not immediately respond to requests for comment. A Lockheed Martin spokesman said the military sales are government-to-government transactions and the matter is best addressed in Washington. All the while, though, Lockheed Martin is salivating at billions and billions of incoming dollars, right? Washington weighs weapons sales to the Mideast in a way that ensures Israel maintains a qualitative military edge. The guarantees that Israel gets more advanced U.S. weapons than the regional Arab states. Breitbart, British government spending on non-English speaking students hits record high. Yes, British schools are receiving a record £540 million a year in additional funding from the government to educate children who don't speak English as their native language. According to DFE figures, the government has increased spending on education for non-native speaking students by £125 million over the past 5 years alone. That is 125, that's £25 million a year. It has gone up. They're literally killing themselves. The paper noted that the money is divvied up among schools based on the number of students who have English as an additional language, and the bulk of the funding is spent on English as a second language teachers, bilingual teaching assistants, and even translators to communicate with parents. As a result of the Westminster establishment-driven mass migration into the country, some schools have been forced into devoting whole classrooms for migrant children who are separated until they attain enough written and oral English skills to join the native students. The director of the Center for Education and Employment Research at Buckingham University, Professor Alan Smithers, said the data are yet another example of the distorting effect of uncontrolled migration. English-born children need all the money they can get. 40% failed GCSE English last year. 40% of their children are failing, and instead they're funding money over to these people that aren't even legal. If the foreign-born children are here legally, we have a moral duty to educate them, but the government really must get on top of illegal migration. The record levels of migration, which began under the Tony Blair administration and were turbocharged by Boris Johnson's post-Brexit immigration liberalizations, have led to a dramatic impact on the makeup of the British education system. Just bring them in legally. Just bring them in legally. But they can't seem to get that right. One person has stood against this tide in the entire world. One person. Breitbart, I want to ask you a question. Who's the dummy here? Okay? Illegals scamming UK voluntary return scheme, pocketing thousands before coming back to Britain. Illegal migrants are reportedly taking advantage of Britain's self-deportation compensation scheme, pocketing thousands in taxpayer cash to leave only to return to the UK while bragging about their exploits online. The Home Office's assisted voluntary return scheme, which offers thousands and a free plane ticket to illegals to voluntarily return to their homelands, is being taken advantage of by unscrupulous migrants, as some have outlined specific steps on how to defraud the British taxpayer on social media. In one instance, a migrant received £3,000, that's like $4,500, we'll say, to return to his country in the autumn of last year, only to return by January illegally to work as a grocery delivery driver. A friend is quoted as remarking, effectively, he went back home for Christmas on the taxpayer's dime. In a similar occurrence, an entire family was paid $12,000 collectively to help rebuild their home in Brazil. Yet the father of the family returned illegally to the UK a half year later to work as a delivery driver. There's something about delivery drivers. I don't know, whatever. The MOS found that hundreds of migrants have taken advantage of the returns payout only to return to Britain illegally. The paper went on to claim that Brazilians appear to be on the front lines of the scheme, with one man quipping, "These are jokers who come back as soon as they set foot in Brazil, ha ha ha." You know how many of them have done that? A Brazilian of them. Scammers openly detail the best methods to return to Britain after receiving the money in posts on social media and online forums. Many pointed to Ireland as a means of easily returning, given the ease of traveling to Britain from Belfast, which, as a Northern Irish city, is part of the UK. Go to France. From France, you go to Dublin. In Dublin, you take a bus to Belfast, and from there, you get a bus to Glasgow, and finally, to London. one online post explained. Now, who's the dummy here? You tell me. It's just like the Americans over the past 4 years before Trump came in. Complete dummies. And these people will take advantage of it as long as it's allowed. It'll never stop until somebody like Donald Trump steps in and says, we have had enough of this. Mongolia. From mainly Miles. Singapore now has nonstop flights to Mongolia. I reported on this 3 or 4 months ago when they said they were going to do it. Guess what they did? They did it. There's an interesting new addition to Changi Airport's passenger route map from this week, with the launch of a non-stop flight between Singapore and Ulaanbaatar, gateway to the Gobi Desert and popular hiking and horse trekking expeditions in this fascinating off-the-beaten-track country. Twice weekly flights on the 7.5-hour stretch, initially using narrow-body Boeing 737-8 MAX aircraft, but soon upgrading to wide-body service with the Boeing 767-300ER. Mongolia remains one of Asia's least traveled countries, with huge swaths of untouched landscapes, nomadic culture, and adventure tourism. Singapore citizens don't need a visa to travel to Mongolia for trips of up to 30 days. So, yeah, this is great, man. You want to go to Mongolia and you want to go to Changi Airport first? I'd been to Singapore. It's about the size of Siesta Key. Actually, it's bigger, but it's really small. It's all concrete. Okay? If you drive around, there's like one house, a little guy that won't sell. He's living the way I live out on the island. You know, just trees and stuff, and everything else is concrete everywhere. It's a nice place, but it's just a concrete place, okay? And they have their own English. They call it Singlish because it's Singapore English, and it's very distinct. It's very annoying, too. But anyway, it's really not. They're great people. But anyway, the Changi Airport, this was when I was there, and this was like 25, 30 years ago. It was huge. It was the airport of the world at the time. Now, I don't know how it rates today, but it was huge, and it was the most modern thing. It was beautiful. Anyway, Singapore. Daniel 12 Technology from Intel Brief. DARPA eyes ghost imaging breakthrough to spot hidden nuclear threats with quantum precision. This is a great development if they can actually get this to work. DARPA announced it is seeking scientists' help in reinventing one of the most complex challenges in national security, detecting hidden nuclear material. This effort utilizes a technique known as ghost imaging, which originates from the realm of quantum physics. If successful, the effort could usher in a new era of nuclear detection technology that can see through shielding, detect fissile materials from a distance, and do it all while minimizing radiation exposure. In essence, DARPA is asking whether the same physics that allows photons to remain mysteriously connected across vast distances, a hallmark of quantum entanglement, can peek inside sealed containers, trucks, or even underground facilities without physically opening them. Quantum mechanics and what they're talking about, these connected qubits they can be light years apart. When this one turns at the exact same time. They're in tune with each other. That's what they're talking about. They're seeing if they can use this type of technology to actually see nuclear material that is, and this would be great for Iran, for example. Anyway, traditional active interrogation techniques used to detect nuclear, chemical, or radiological materials typically involve bombarding an object with neutrons or gamma rays and analyzing the resulting radiation signature. These systems can be powerful, but often carry risks. Specifically, they can expose operators and nearby personnel to radiation, require close-range inspection, and struggle to distinguish between benign and threatening materials. Ghost imaging, however, flips that paradigm. Instead of forming an image directly from reflected light or radiation, it uses correlations between two separate beams, one that interacts with the object and another that does not, to reconstruct an image indirectly. In some setups, the beam that sees the object never touches it. Laboratory Technicians has demonstrated these foundational aspects and shows potential to disrupt conventional active nuclear interrogation in the future by extending laboratory experiments to field deployable GI interrogation systems. So that's pretty interesting. If they can do that, it will take care of a lot of the hiding of nuclear material that is out there all over the world. My guess is as soon as they have this, they'll have it in space and they'll be able to detect it anywhere on Earth. It's a dangerous world, including the inevitable plagues noted in the book of Revelation. From People magazine, millions of women take this daily medication. It's now confirmed to increase breast cancer risk. A massive study of more than 2 million women has confirmed that increased risk of breast cancer was associated with hormonal contraceptive use. But researchers warned that the benefits of the pill may still outweigh the risk. Now, I'm going to take the pill to not have a baby, but I'm going to get breast cancer, but it's still better to, not have the baby? The researchers found that women who took birth control that contains only one hormone, a form of progesterone called desogestrel, were at 21% increased risk of developing breast cancer, whereas those on a combination of pills had a 12% higher risk. The finding that desogestrel may increase breast cancer risk more than other progestins is a novel finding that, to our knowledge, has not been previously reported. So if you got families that are taking the pill, you might talk to them. BBC. Texas Attorney General sues Tylenol makers over autism claims. So Texas is suing Tylenol because they were hiding stuff. The lawsuit comes a month after President Trump promoted an unproven link between taking Tylenol, also known as paracetamol, during pregnancy and autism in children. Paxton is suing Johnson & Johnson, which previously sold the drug, the only pain reliever recommended for pregnant women, and Kenvue, which now manufactures it. In a statement, he said they betrayed America by profiting off of pain and pushing pills regardless of the risks. Kenvue says there's no credible evidence tying Tylenol to autism. Their own studies did. We reported on 4 of them a week or 2 ago, 3 weeks ago. On its website, Kenvue has also said it had continuously evaluated relevant science, and there's no credible data that shows a proven link between taking acetaminophen and autism. When it's already been proven. It's been proven again and again and again, but they say it's not proven. From Barron's, Germany warns of dangerous boom in hard drug use. Remember our fentanyl crisis that we had? People were losing their jobs to illegals, and then they have no job and they have nothing else to do, so they start taking fentanyl. And we lost, I read a study, and I may be misquoting this, but I think the study said that we lost to drug use over the past number of years. I don't remember how many it was, but more people than the Civil War. The bloodiest war that we have ever waged in the history of the United States of America. More people died than all of the other wars in America combined in the Civil War. And we've lost more people to this drug use than that. Okay, I may be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure that's the study I read. Morality. Breitbart. Wikipedia page claims adult human female constitutes hate speech against transgender individuals. So if I call you an adult woman female, that's hate speech. That's Wikipedia. That's why we now have anybody? Grokpedia. That's right. Very good. If you want to get your information, don't go to Wikipedia. Go to Grokpedia. It's continuing to build out day after day. Elon Musk wants free speech. He wants people to find, the guy doesn't do everything right. I just agree with his business model. Let people know the truth, and then you decide. Breitbart. Glamour magazine fills its Woman of the Year cover with men. Glamour magazine. From KVI. Canadian attorneys argue for lighter sentence for migrant who kidnapped a 9-year-old so that he can avoid deportation. From the Post-Millennial, LA Gym revokes woman's membership after her privacy is violated by a man in woman's locker room. Now, we got a real problem here because this is a guy in a woman's locker room. They revoked her woman membership, but she's a black lesbian. So they really had to decide which one are we going to let go, you know? And they took the freakiest of the freaky and kept him, okay? From the Post-Millennial, Native American trans pedophile who abused his own son on tribal land will get taxpayer-funded laser hair removal, voice therapy in North Carolina prison after a court order. That's the most bizarre title I think I've ever read in my life. The Post-Millennial, Maryland School District asked 11-year-olds to define trans terms like gender expression and sex assigned at birth. When I was 11, I'm pretty sure we were still doing crayons and talking about Mickey Mouse, right? You talk about ruining an entire generation of human beings. The left is doing everything they can to destroy this nation. Everything. CNN, Supreme Court allows Trump to limit passport sex markers for trans and non-binary Americans. Good. Supreme Court said that's it. No more of this nonsense. It's male. And it's... You racists. Okay. Breitbart. Federal data. Biden's HHS lost contact with half of all migrant children released to adult sponsors in the United States. Migrant children coming in, we're going to give you a better home, and they've been sent off to pedophiles and to people that are abusing them, that are using them in slavery. LifeSite. Quebec has the highest euthanasia rate in the world. Quebec. In the whole world. Zero Hedge. Yeah, wow is right. It was just a couple years ago that they said we're going to introduce this, and it's only for the most severe of all instances. Zero Hedge. This is our other news. Zero Hedge. How the KGB's playbook is destroying the West today. This is similar to something else I read you once a year from Sid Herlong, the representative of Florida back in 1964. This is similar to it, but it's more information. Yuri Bezmenov was a Soviet journalist and KGB operative specializing in propaganda and ideological subversion. Ideological subversion is the process of bending a society's perception of reality so completely that it destroys itself. In the Cold War era, few voices pierced the veil of secrecy as profoundly as that of Bezmenov, a KGB defector. His warnings, drawn from first-hand experience in Soviet active measures, offers blueprints for destroying free societies. Now, as I'm reading this, I want you to think if there's any political movement or party that matches what he said is being done. Not through bombs, invasions, or disease, but through the poisons of manipulated ideas and cultural decay. Here are 20 of Bezmenov's key insights.
Bezmenov.
I can't say that. I'm not even going to try. Ideological subversion is a long-term process spanning 15 to 60 years. Now, 1964 was how long ago?
61 years.
61 years ago. So this is about the right time frame. Okay? You're right. I know it's 61 years because I was born in 1964. That's right. Designed to change the perception of reality in a target nation without need for a military force. Only about 15% of KGB efforts focused on traditional espionage. The majority targeted psychological warfare and ideological manipulation. The goal is to demoralize a society by undermining its moral, educational, and cultural foundations, making people unable to recognize or defend against threats. What do you think we've had shoved down our throats? Administration after administration after administration by a certain political party. Okay, listen, the KGB never went away. They just changed their name. Putin is the same guy and Trump understands this. Why do you think the left has said that Trump has been sold out to the Russians for the past 8 years? Why do you think they did that? It's called PROJECTION, projection. They are the ones that are sold out to the communist Chinese, to the Russians. Demoralization takes 15 to 20 years. The time needed to educate one generation with subversive ideas. We've had well more than that. Educational systems at all levels are key targets. turning schools into indoctrination centers that promote relativism over facts and critical thinking. Exactly the United States of America. Media infiltration sows confusion by amplifying divisive narratives and discrediting objective truth. The left. Religion is attacked by portraying it as outdated or oppressive. The left, eroding spiritual anchors and replacing them with state loyalty or nihilism. Family structures are weakened through promotion of individualism, divorce, and alternative lifestyles that fragment social cohesion. All on the left, all of it. Moral relativism blurs right and wrong, leading to apathy and inability to unite against a society's true enemies. All on the left. History is rewritten to vilify national heroes and traditions. All those statues being torn down, all of those school books thrown away, the left. They are fostering self-doubt and guilt in the populace. Oh my God, I'm white. I feel ashamed that I'm a white person. Following demoralization, destabilization lasts 2 to 5 years, targeting the economy, foreign relations, and defense to create internal chaos. The swamp, right? Economic sabotage widens class divides, shrinks the middle class, and there is no middle class. It was gone at the time of Biden. Trump is working to get it back, okay? And breeds resentment through inflation, shortages, or inequality. All happened heavily during Obama and Biden. Foreign policy is manipulated to isolate the nation, straining alliances and emboldening adversaries. Defense readiness erodes through budget cuts, internal divisions, or anti-military propaganda. It was never so bad as under Carter. It was so bad they were smoking pot in front of their CEOs, their officers. They weren't doing any, the CEO, that's not a military term. Their commanding officers, nobody did anything. They were walking around unclean, unshaven, and nobody did anything. Reagan came in and he turned it around. Well, guess what happened under Biden? The same thing. The military will never be what it was again. And what did Trump do? He got the military right back on target. That is the most important aspect of our nation, is having a military that can defend and is prepared to defend this nation. The crisis stage erupts in violence or upheaval, where a demoralized and destabilized society demands radical solutions. Like New York, during the crisis, people willingly surrender freedoms for promised security, paving the way for authoritarian control. Remember the people that were in the got to spy on the disinformation crew. That's what that's speaking of. Normalization is the final phase where subversive changes become the new normal. We were right there before this last election. Institutionalized and irreversible until we came up with Donald Trump. And without him, we would be sold out right now. Opposition is silenced through censorship, marginalization, or elimination in the normalization stage. Exactly what Biden's term was set out to do. The process relies on useful idiots, BLM, Antifa, all of these people, well-meaning Western intellectuals, elitists, activists, and leaders who unwittingly advance societal suicide. Once subversion succeeds, even exposure of the truth won't reverse it. As the population rejects facts that contradict their reprogrammed worldview, which half of the left is completely reprogrammed. Everything contradicts it, and they want nothing to do with what we used to have. Bezmenov's insights resonate today for obvious reasons, from our fractured educational institutions, corrupted scientists, to zero trust in experts. We got two people that just walked in that were under that system. They escaped from it, and now we have somebody that's trying to get us free from it again. From WUSF, Federal Appeals Court refuses to block Florida's Chinese property law. A divided Federal Appeals Court rejected a request to block key parts of a 2023 Florida law that restricts people from China from purchasing property in the state. The case is focused heavily on part of the law that prevents people domiciled in China from purchasing property in Florida, with some exceptions. Under the law, such people are each allowed to purchase one residential property up to 2 acres if the property is not within 5 miles of a military base and they have non-tourist visas. Does anybody know what they have right on? It's been in the news 3 times in the past 24 hours. Right on the other side of the border, Canada and America, we have Whiteman Air Force Base, and that's where the B-2s are. What is out there? Did anybody read those articles? Chinese spying on us. They found out them. They were doing it in other places. They just moved over to there. They're in Canada, and they are there actively spying on us. They have more Chinese around our military installations than any other country on the planet. They are getting our intelligence, and we are sold off to these people. This has to be taken, and Florida is taking a step against it. Breitbart. Tests find Chinese manufacturer can manipulate electric buses in, I said it earlier, Norway. So here we have it, Israel. We've got it in Norway. We've got it in Peru. We've got it in Japan. We've got all over the world. They are testing these, and they're finding out that they are being spied on, and not only spied on, passively, but actively. Safety tests by a public transport operator in Oslo, Norway, conducted, have raised grave concerns over Chinese electric buses. The operator conducted secret trials a few months ago on an electric bus from a European manufacturer and one from China's Yutong to determine if there were cybersecurity threats. The European bus remained secure, but the Chinese-made one had the ability to be manipulated by its manufacturer all the way back in China. The manufacturer has access to buses' software, diagnostics, and battery control systems. Therefore, the manufacturer could stop or render the vehicle unusable. You want to go to war against a country? Just stop their infrastructure. It's all over. Mail Online. America's electric car market runs out of juice, with sales plunging as much as 80%. Now, why doesn't Elon Musk care about this? He says he does, but why doesn't he? He wasn't getting them anyway. All of these rebates they were given, they exempted the one person that was doing America a favor for the past 4 years. They exempted. He's not allowed to get any rebates. Everybody else was getting rebates, and so they were selling cars, and now nobody wants them because they're not getting any rebates. After the federal $7,500 EV tax credit expired at the end of September, sales of battery-powered cars fell off a cliff. Car companies with electrical vehicles all posted massive drops in October, the first full month without the incentive that had helped prop up demand for more than a decade. The credit first introduced in 2008 and expanded under Biden offered up to $7,500 for qualifying electric cars built primarily in the U.S. That changed when President Trump signed the Big Beautiful Bill Act in July. Buyers rushed to lock in deals before the deadline, leaving the dealerships with empty lots and automakers with a sales surge cash. Hyundai's all-electric lineup plunged 71% month to month, with the popular Ioniq 5 down 80%. Toyota sold just 6 of its BZ4X crossovers in October, compared with 1,401 the month before. That's like a 100% almost drop. Tesla, which doesn't report monthly figures, said it sold more cars than ever. Because people want something that's going to be there, that's actually going to work, and he's never had a problem with it. Okay, Tesla, he's a great guy. He has developed all kinds of things for the United States of America. He came here as an entrepreneur, and he's built things. I have no problem with that. You know, so, like I say, some of the things he does are kind of nutty, and the guy is not all there. But he's a savant. He's a business savant, and he knows how the business model works. And he's the first trillion-dollar man. I mean, zero hedge. Ford mulls scrapping F-150 Lightning after dismal demand and mounting losses. Gateway Pundit, the new garment of fear. China manufactures anti-stab clothing and exposes the left's failure to guarantee public safety. People all over the world in liberal cities are buying anti-stab clothing because they're afraid of being stabbed because their governments aren't securing their borders. So if you want anti-stab clothing, just go online and you can buy it now. It's selling like hotcakes. Why should a society have to live like that? Wall Street Journal, Russia's new war grifters. This makes me so angry. The Black Widows duping soldiers into marriage. They're getting married just to hope that the guy gets exploded on the front lines. You know, when I've never forgot this. When I was in Japan, I worked at the CBPO, which no longer exists, but it was called the Consolidated Base Personnel Office. And anything you needed to do anything in the military, you came to this office. One office did, you know, you want to move, you want to get promoted, you want to, you know, whatever. All these different offices and base personnel. And one of them was the SGLI office. It had other jobs, but Servicemen's Group Life Insurance, right? And there's a girl that this young guy that was on the base went down to the Philippines and he met this pretty girl and he married her and this is going to be my wife forever. And he brought her back up and she was out immediately with every other guy on the base, right? Then he found out about it and what did he do? He killed himself. The next morning she walked in and she demanded her SGLI. I want my SG, and they said, we can't. We got to process it, and we got to go through the whole. She was irate that she wasn't getting her money. She'd be gone in 10 minutes, and then she'd be on with the next guy, waiting for him to take a bullet too. These people that do things like that, I just can't even. Terrible. Breitbart: Maine voters reject voter ID laws to protect state elections from fraud. Oh, we don't want that. We don't want to protect the elections from fraud. TPM: Oregon declines criminal investigation into those who illegally voted. No kidding. At least 1,863 individuals were unlawfully registered to vote under the Oregon DMV voter registration system, and they do not want to investigate it.
Wow.
From the Post-Millennial again, Texas bans non-citizens from voting in all elections after passing constitutional amendment. Good. Gateway Pundit: even leftist Van Jones raises concerns over Mamdani's instant character switch after New York City mayoral win. Imagine if Kamala had won. I'm going to be this to the American people. I'm going to be this. Imagine the switch the next day. Because she said what she was going to do 4 years earlier. And it was terrible. She was salivating at destroying this nation as quickly as she could. Okay, who said it? Diplomacy is the art of telling people to go to, we'll say heck, go to heck in such a way that they ask for directions. Churchill. Yeah. Okay, I got a joint venture, Rick, here for you. Some illegals use travel for pay. They go home for just only a day. England gives them some cash, which they add to their stash, and all done to taxpayer dismay. Yeah. Okay, got a couple ironies and we're done. Zero Hedge: Iran angrily condemns Trump's call to resume U.S. nuclear testing. Iran. And then Breitbart: professors catch dozens of students using AI to write an apology letter for using the same tools to cheat in class. Such is the world in which we live. So from Sarasota, Florida to Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia, I'm Charlie Garrett, and that is your CG Prophecy Report for the week.